Hey, it's Ronan, and this is a quick message before I hand you over to our first ever Ireland Radar podcast episode. We've just finished recording. I think it's pretty good, and the plan is to bring you episodes just like this every fortnight, if not a little bit more often than that, depending on whether big stories emerge in the news cycle. The podcast essentially will begin every week with On the Radar section, which basically deals with the biggest stories from Irish football that particular week, followed by an Under the Radar section, which will then look at the smaller goings on, particularly in the English football world and Irish players abroad. That'll be before we conclude episodes with a quick overview, a rundown of the weekend's action, giving you the Irish involvement just as would have been the case on Kenny's Kids on Twitter for all those years. Thanks to everyone who's followed and engaged with the Ireland Radar relaunch so far. It was a big transition from the whole Kenny's Kids thing, but we're very happy at the website. So to find us on our social channels, your best bet's to go on to our website, irelandradar.com. There you'll find all our social links. You can subscribe with emails, get the latest articles and new podcasts as well. The first of which sounds like this.
I think he's a total spoofer. What should be a spoofer? This is bullshit.
Wolves coming back from an offside position, but Shane Long was definitely onside. Shane Long has done it!
I'm going to enjoy tonight.
And you should as well. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Unless he's breastfeeding, he should be alright.
Hello, and you are very welcome to the Ireland Radar podcast. And much like the Ireland managerial search, we are finally here. The speculation is over, and before the mic, we have myself, Joseph Murray, your host, and I'm joined by the mercurial Ronan Calvert, formerly of Kenny's Kids, and also joining us is Dylan Hudson and James French. Lads, it's an absolute pleasure. We finally got there.
We're finally there, Joe, yeah. Only took about a year, but we're finally up and running, thank God. And looking forward to getting podcasts the next few months, really.
Yeah, and I suppose a bit of housekeeping before we get started. Obviously, the purpose of this podcast really is just to run you through everything that's on the radar and possibly things that you've possibly missed, through the weeks and whatnot. So we're looking at weekly episodes for the time being anyways, and we'll see how we progress with that. But plenty to talk about at the moment. Obviously, the transfer window has just wrapped up. There's plenty of Irish involvement right across Europe, and we'll also touch a little bit on Shamrock Rovers as well. So just to jump first in, obviously the Ireland squad has been announced. There's been a few key omissions, but also a few selections as well. Lads, first of all, what are your initial impressions?
I think the first squad was always going to be similar to the last, but the midfield looks weak. I think we're probably going to see more of the younger players get brought up when the squads go on and further international breaks, but I'd hardly think that Halgrimsson has much to say about this squad.
I think you'll probably see from the squad where we're kind of going to go down with, obviously the likes of Molumby and Brown in there. No kind of Azaz and McGrath, which is a big surprise considering McGrath has been absolutely brilliant for Aberdeen this season. They've kind of really been resurgent, and I think he's 2 goals, 3 assists in 3 games. So Noel McGrath has kind of been a staple of most Irish squad over the last couple of years is a bit of a shock.
I'd kind of feel the same way, yeah. In terms of centre backs and forwards, we seem stacked, but the lack of midfielders is a weakness anyway. But the fact there's no attacking midfield option there, it just leaves us with even less. I think wingers might be strong, good forwards, but we might be a bit predictable with our play, I fear. So hopefully not, but that's my initial reaction anyway.
And there's just been this clamour to get away from the wing back system or the 3 centre halves, and I don't see a way maybe a flat 4 can work when you don't have a strong midfield. It's probably better to play the stronger centre halves. But to be honest, he might experiment in this. I went over some of the lineups he did for Jamaica, and seemed every other game he either played a flat back 4 or wing backs, and kind of changed a lot between was he playing wingers or attacking midfielders. So I mean, maybe it's a good thing that there's not just one set formation that he normally goes for, but I think it'd be interesting to see how we line up against England.
Yeah, and obviously there's been a couple of key inclusions as well, and I think the headliner really is the inclusion of Casey McAteer. And for me, he's maybe not someone that Ireland fans will be too familiar with, given he's not been totally involved up to this point, but surely that's something that we can take excitement from in Heimir Halgrimsson's first squad.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think we heard about this maybe like a year ago, and it feels like it's been a long time between. I think he might have had injuries in between, but even trying to get this cleared. So I mean, another good winger option is never a bad thing. I think he can be an important player for the country.
There's kind of been a lot of lack of us kind of coaching the dual national players over the last couple of years, and Halgrimsson talked about kind of trying to probably going back to that, just kind of the real lack of quality and depth like in the Ireland national pool, and so kind of getting another winger, because like we have very few kind of those inside wingers in the national pool other than maybe Mikey Johnson, who obviously isn't in the squad, just got his move to West Brom, so kind of compensating for the loss of him in this particular squad. It's nice to see you kind of have probably a light for light replacement there with Casey Marker. I haven't seen a great deal about him, but I know he's kind of a relatively talented creative winger, like, so hopefully if he can do as well as Mikey has done kind of in an Ireland shirt, then I think it would be in for good things.
I think it adds to the formation conversation as well, though, because I think with the wingers we have now, it's actually a strength to the team. And like, as we know, we've been stuck playing with the wing backs for what must be 3 or 4 years now, and it might have made sense at the time. Matt Doherty, I think back then, might have been in some good form with Wolves or Spurs, and Enda Stevens was in the Premier League, but we're a long way from that now, like, and we might have players coming through. Festi Ebiselli might be an option. We're still very light on the left hand side, bar some fairly kind of old campaigners. So I think, although I expect Heimir to start out with the 5 at the back and O'Shea being an influence on that, I'd imagine as time progresses we'll begin to mould more into what we said earlier, maybe a 4-4-2 team, which mightn't be the worst thing in terms of using the wide players, but you'd still worry about having less numbers in the middle at the same time.
My argument in terms of the wing-back thing was always I would have liked to see Ebiselli moved in the squads. I know James is something me and you have talked about personally a lot, that we need a big injection of pace into the side sometimes, but I'd always just think about using Ogbene there. He's done it at club level. I know sometimes it's more close to a midfielder, a wide midfielder than a wing-back, but if we ever went back to that 5 at the back, I'd like to see Ogbene go back to right wing-back, and then you have that option of playing McAteer ahead of him if you're doing wingers. Maybe it takes the need for him to be in the attack away.
To be fair, people talk about like the death of kind of the 4-4-2. Like, I think even Slovenia obviously was at the Euros, and like even most elite teams now, they do like out of possession. I think most teams do set up in a 4-4-2 shape. So like, I wouldn't be against going back to a 4 at the back, especially considering like, look at the players that we'd have to play in a wing back. Coleman 34, 35, Doherty 33, I think, and Brady 32. Like, it's very difficult to find success with a wing back system when you have full backs who are not over the hill, but definitely kind of past their peak years. And you could even argue that, like, if you look at our centre back options, they're all kind of hitting peak years, all in the Premier League, maybe not all starting, but you couldn't even argue that we kind of start 4 centre halves at this stage, considering our lack of options at a full back positions.
Yeah, I think you'd always be okay as well if like the second striker over your 2 was someone like Smodics or Parrott, who can probably drop back that bit and support the midfield in a way that we kind of did anyway before, when we had like say like a 5-2-2-1 formation, where it'd be like one of the 2 of say like a McGrath and Knight would come back really deep in support midfield anyway. So we mightn't be overcrowded if we went that way about it. The other thing is, I suppose, like, maybe with the future players coming through, maybe someone like Sam Curtis would be better, stationed as like a right back than like a right wing back anyway, and it could actually suit us in that way as well. So yeah, be interesting enough. I just kind of wonder, or my fear is that it's one thing playing a 4-4-2 or that kind of shape. Some of the stuff you hear from Heimir, you would kind of worry that maybe he could be trying some really kind of park the bus tactics that maybe went out of fashion 5 years ago. I know Slovenia played at the Euros, but not many teams really playing that kind of old school style. Like, a lot of the pundits and stuff seem to think that playing Mark O'Neill football can still get you results and get you to like the quarterfinals and stuff. I mean, there's a lack of teams playing that stuff. You need to be fairly sophisticated nowadays, I feel.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say there, Ronan, and I think if we look at it in terms of what you say there about parking the bus, is that what you're looking or expecting to happen against England? Do you think he's going to, obviously with the lack of number 10s in the squad as well, do you think it's going to be basically a case of hit it up to the big man, whoever that is, and hope? Or is it going to be maybe an attempt at going for it or nicking a point, or even a win if possible?
I think for the England match, I think that'll almost happen naturally anyway. Even if I think it was like Kenny trying to like play out properly or whatever, it probably would end up being like penned back for a lot of the game regardless, because of just the kind of difference in quality, I suppose. But yeah, based on what he's been saying as well though, like he's been talking about just keeping things simple in training, and he's almost been warning the fans saying, look, we don't have much time to work on stuff here, so let's just make sure we're like compact and organised. And that's kind of fair enough as well. Like it's realistic in some ways. I'd imagine his main focus will be set pieces, because he kind of does pride himself on scoring from even like throw-ins and corners, whatever. So yeah, I think that'll be the way for the England match, and hopefully there's more to it going on from that, like in future matches. But yeah, that's what I expect to see Saturday. And couldn't really expect much more, to be fair.
So now we'll move swiftly on to things that you may have missed, or things that maybe aren't quite as in the headlines. So starting off, Jason Molumby obviously scored for West Brom against Swansea, and he's had a really strong start to the season. I suppose given the lack of midfield options maybe there is in the Ireland squad at the moment, I think it's fair to say that he's going to have a big involvement, lads.
I think with Jason, obviously it was kind of a staple of that Kenny side. Like when he first got the job, done really well the 21s with him, with Stephen, and then I think last season kind of struggled. He struggled to maintain a starting spot for West Brom. So it's in particular just with how light our midfield is, it's really good that he seems to start the season really well, and hopefully he can kind of be a consistent starter for West Brom, especially no Cullen as well. I think the sixth position is a spot where we are like really, really light. I could even probably argue that in the next squad that even a Joe Hodge could probably come in, considering he has obviously scored at the weekend and has just got his loan move to League One. So yeah, I think Jason obviously brings a lot to the table in terms of work rate, tackling, and he definitely can be kind of the bastard that Heimir is kind of looking for in the Ireland team.
Yeah, I immediately thought that when the manager got announced that Molumby and also Jason Knight in a way are kind of like they have a lot of room to impress, and I think Molumby, or at least one of the pair, is going to become a bit of a teacher's pet. I think he seems to like those kind of dogged midfielders, and Molumby's definitely got that in abundance. And you know, if he's already looking for a play like that, it's never really a bad sign.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really important come the England game as well. Just when he's in form, he's actually really important to Ireland. Like in the, I guess, 2022-23 season, he was like really good in that Nations League summer, first of all, and then progressing on to the following March against France at home. He was outstanding there as well. So yeah, I think he'll be really important. And like his form dipped off and he wasn't fit. He was playing through injury for a long time as well, which people don't know. Last summer when he was playing for Ireland, he had continued on through the end of the season at West Brom, but he was taking all sorts of painkillers. That's on the record. His manager at the time was saying it and stuff, that he's completely playing through injury. And yeah, he suffered. So last year was almost like a null and void season, but he's back now, and I think some of his best form could be ahead in this campaign. I think, yeah, he started the season well in the Championship, so I'm hoping he can become like Heimir's pet and become an important player for us.
Yeah, spot on. Here's hoping. He's someone that can really flourish under Heimir. But if you look at someone maybe who hasn't come out of particularly the last month with a lot of optimism, it's probably Caoimhin Kelleher, and also you could argue Gavin Bazunu as well. Both players have probably fallen down the pecking order at their respective clubs. Kelleher obviously has been knocked down after Liverpool's £29 million deal for Georgie Mamarchvili, and I think Arne Slot as well has also come out in the press just to say Kelleher faces a decision over his future. And then obviously Aaron Ramsdale has made his transfer to Southampton as well. It's not been a good couple of weeks for Ireland goalkeepers, lads.
Yeah, there was a lot of goalkeeper movement this summer, especially in the Premier League, and we were just kind of keeping an eye on when Kelleher is going to get that move. I think he gets a bit hard done by within kind of the Ireland circles, getting maybe a bit of stick. I think at the end of the day, like, Liverpool have a prize for him. He's come out, I think it was the start of June, he did an interview with The Athletic saying that he wants to leave after the season that he had, where I think he started 14 games in a row for Liverpool, which was more than he had in his last 3 seasons or something. But they set a price tag of 25-30 million for him, and look, at the end of the day, not a lot of teams are going to come in for a goalkeeper with less than 50 senior caps at a club level. I think he's only played something like 47 games by 26 he is now, I think 25 or 26. I think it's probably just going to be another year as backup for Liverpool, and probably leaves next season in 2026 when he's got a year left on his contract. But in terms of Bazunu, it's hard for him coming back from injury. to something like that. I think he's still a while to be back, but it seemed like last season that the manager was putting faith in him, even when his performance had dipped, and to come back and be challenged by Ramsdale, who at one stage was a good Premier League goalkeeper. We'll see what he's like after a season of backup, but it's tough. But he's still very young, so I suppose he's got time on his hands.
Yeah, it's funny how things kind of change so quickly. Like our goalkeeper situation, even a year or two ago, or a couple of years ago, was probably really, really promising. Like with Kelleher, Bazunu, and even Travers, who was really highly rated at Bournemouth, and he's even kind of been mismanaged by them. I think obviously with Scott has left the background there, which is good, so hopefully he can kind of start playing consistently. But you could probably make the case for like Max O'Leary. I know he's starting every week for Bristol. Would you start a kind of cold Keller coming into against England? Like he's going to be coming in very like not sharp anyway. Do you know what I mean? Coming up against England, like it does raise the question whether you'd want to maybe start O'Leary, who actually has been playing week in, week out.
It's one thing Kelleher brought up in that article a few months ago as well, is how much of a better goalkeeper he felt after playing consecutive games. And I think we've had this conversation where I think Kelleher's stocks dropped a bit before last season, and then, you know, you just seen how much better of a goalkeeper he is after a few games. You know, I'm kind of shocked he didn't get the move this summer. I think it looked like it was finally going to happen, but I think there is an argument with O'Leary, but again, it's up to the new manager, and it depends how much he's going to want to change from the last regime.
Yeah, I think at the start of the summer, especially like when he was playing the Ireland friendlies and those press conferences around that time, he seemed very certain on wanting to leave without probably saying it like completely straight up. He pretty much suggested he wanted to go. So I think it's just, I just kind of keep on seeing this stuff with all the Irish players though. Just like these circumstances of their clubs selling other players, which means they have to stay, or there's injuries, or there's new signings, and it's happened to like a lot of our lads the last couple of seasons, but it's just kind of making their careers be on standby kind of. And I think a lot of them might have to wait till they're like 27 to really flourish, because there's just so much moving parts and injuries and stuff. And even what we mentioned about Molumby there a minute ago, like he had a whole season lost there, and before that, you know, before he kind of really found his feet with West Brom, a couple of loans that didn't work out, and finding the right club, same at Parrot. He's only now as he really seemed to have found somewhere where he can properly enjoy his football, and he has the same. So just those kind of circumstances. I think Kelleher is very much like that, and I think as soon as he does like find a club, he'll start flying then, I think. And that's why I kind of keep the optimism. It's just kind of short-term pain for long-term gain, I suppose.
We've seen the moment pass where it might have happened. Let's hope not. Houlihan. Inviting is there! Brings us all to our feet. Fantastic goal to put Ireland in front. Now, just 6 minutes remaining.
If we look at lads who are consistently starting in the Premier League in this instance, Chiedozie Ogbeni and Sammy Smodics both started in Ipswich's 1-1 draw with Fulham, which is obviously great for us as Ireland fans. Two lads who've made the move this summer and have really taken to the Premier League so well. Obviously Ogbeni had his move last year and really did well with Luton, establishing himself as a fan favourite. And Smodics is, I suppose we all knew he was capable of the step up, but it's one thing thinking it and another thing actually having it realised. So it's great to see for him. Darragh O'Shea obviously on the bench as well, and then Nathan Collins, Will Smallbone and Seamus Coleman all started in the Premier League this weekend. So I suppose in terms of that, there's a lot of positives to take looking ahead to the England game. But then obviously the big dampener is Evan Ferguson's fitness, and it's looking like he's probably best case scenario going to be touch and go for England, and worst case scenario not even going to be capable of making the bench based on the fact that he didn't make the matchday squad for Brighton's win over Arsenal at the weekend.
You nearly be surprised that he's been included in the squad. I know he's obviously probably one of our best players, like talent wise, but like he's been injured for so long, and probably still a bit to go in terms of actually featuring, and didn't even come off the bench for Brighton in the cup. Like, kind of I'd maybe thinking even Sinclair Arthur could come in and start the Champions season really well. Bristol fans seem to be loving him, but they've obviously decided to kind of keep him with the Tony Ormond. So yeah, I think thinking pretty logically probably going to be Adam Ida maybe starting, leading the line, with kind of Parrott maybe as someone either with him or coming off the bench to replace him later in the game.
As a wider point on Ferguson, he's I don't think this time last year we could have seen ourselves saying this, but I think he's another player that we might have to worry about his game time going forward. Brighton, I think they've spent the second most money in Europe this season with 195 million or something like that, and they've brought in a lot of attackers. And João Pedro is flying on all fronts for them, and that they've also got Jorginho Rota from Leeds, and it's looking kind of difficult to see where his minutes are going to come for Brighton this season now. Obviously they got a new manager as well, so maybe he's a fan once he sees him play a bit more, but I think he's really going to have to work for his game time this season.
Yeah, I feel the same. I think it's probably unlikely that we see him start for Ireland, really. Just hasn't had minutes even in the cup last week. I think Mark O'Mahony came on rather than him, so I don't have new information on him or anything, but I'd be pretty surprised. Maybe it's the second game they're hoping he might be able to make some kind of contribution, but for the England game, yeah, he'd be doing very well to start, I think.
It's a little bit of a worrying one, and begs the wider question, and you touched on it there, whether it's going to be Troy Parrott and Adam Ida up front, or together as a duo, or whether it's going to be one on for one, depending on, I suppose, the circumstances of the game. But if we look maybe further back, Premier League involvement for centre halves, Jake O'Brien is again not picked by Sean Dyche, and if you look at how poorly Everton have started the season, the fact that he's not even been given a run, it's not a great reflection of the move so far, but maybe he's just being given time to bed in. What do you think, lads?
To be fair, given I think the context of his move, Leon spent a lot of money in the summer and they needed to sell somebody that was of kind of a high value, so he was always going to be leaving Leon. Unfortunately, I think another year would have abbreviated his development. But kind of picking Everton, even when it happened, a lot of Irish fans were very disappointed, considering he was linked to Ajax and Borussia Dortmund. And to be fair, we don't know the ins and outs of the deal, whether Ajax and Dortmund were actually in for him. But on the kind of reaction at the moment, it's pretty disappointing how the move's gone so far. Only positive is Everton have played so bad that you'd surely kind of be guaranteed to start the next game, considering how bad their defence has been this season.
Yeah, I think I'd second that. I think they might have anticipated somebody else come in for Brantwaite as well, which, or I had anticipated anyways, which might have made his game time easier. At the moment, it looks like he's fourth choice. I don't know, is that going to be the same going forward? Because he's just come into the club, obviously, so they might just ease him in, but it doesn't look like he's going to be a starter anytime soon. And I think when he's only had that one season at Lyon, it is disappointing to go back, especially I think we're all, as Irish fans, going to keep banging the drum about players playing in Europe, and he was looking like a success story from that. He was such a key player for Lyon last season, and he was someone you can kind of just point at to look what he's doing over there. And again, I struggle to see where he gets minutes this season, even as a player that you can look at and be like, he looks like Sean Dyche, wet dream of a centre half, but I still don't think it's going to work out for him there.
And I suppose if we build on that then and look at the wider squads and team selection then for the upcoming internationals, based on the fact that he's featured in very few games this season, obviously he came into the squad and did quite well in the June fixtures. Do you think, based on the fact that he's not played that much football so far this season, can he be a shoe-in for the starting 11 for the England game?
I think he still has a fair chance. I mean, if you're looking at three centre backs, Babadele is not playing football either, so I still think so. Yeah, I think Heimir will probably like his qualities and his profile. So, and particularly having had the great season he had last season, I think he has a lot of credit from those summer friendlies as well. Obviously, O'Shea gave his first start in that Portugal match, and even though that match was a shambles, really, he still somehow managed to impress there. In the box, he's very useful. And against England especially, I think his capability to score goals, as he showed at Lyon from set pieces last season, I think it was 5 or 6 goals he scored. I can't quite remember, but he's definitely a threat there. So I think it'll be really important if he does play, and that's probably the main reason, that I can see him starting.
I do think Heimir will love his profile, just considering his height and his danger from set pieces. But you would imagine that the likes of O'Shea, Collins and Scales would probably be ahead of him in the pecking order. whether we played 2 at the back or 3 at the back, you would imagine that the 3 of them consider Collins and Scales both starting every week. And Darrell O'Shea, I think, did start Burnley's Open Championship games. Obviously didn't play at the weekend after his move to Ipswich, but will definitely be a lot sharper than O'Brien coming into the camp. So yeah, I'd imagine that the 3 of them would be ahead of O'Brien, but kind of looking to the future, I think he'll definitely be someone that Heimir will look to use, whether it's long throw-ins or corners, with his height and his kind of threat in the air.
There's probably not going to be as much pressure on who's played the most minutes now, just for this camp at least. I think it'll be a different story going forward, just on the basis that it's only 3 games into the season. So if there's ever a time that you can get away with someone that's maybe not played that much, it is probably this camp. I agree. I think they're going to take one look at him and his qualities from set pieces. I don't know, will he start the first game, but maybe in the second. I know it is technically competitive fixtures, but I think there's going to be a lot of room for experimenting. And I think if anywhere we might see 2 different defensive partnerships across 2 games, or it depends if we're playing 5 at the back or if we're playing a flat back 4. It's going to probably depend on who's been picked there, what style we go with.
Yeah, certainly food for thought for Heimir Halgrimsson, and it's going to be really interesting to see how we do shape up for that first match, given the options that are available, but also the difficulties and the selection headaches because of the lack of minutes for some individuals that you would normally associate with, being shoo-ins or the qualities that Halgrimsson maybe is looking for. But just to run you through some of the other involvements, obviously Finn Azaz won man of the match for Ipswich versus Cardiff on Saturday, and that was a game he also provided an assist. Bit of a sore one given the fact that he's not in the Ireland squad and had impressed earlier in the year. Otherwise, under 21 Tyler Goodham scored a beauty for Oxford in the Championship against Preston. He's not in the current under 21 squad, but he's certainly one to keep an eye on. And then obviously Mark O'Mahony, who scored during the week for Brighton, came on for his loan debut against Portsmouth in the Championship. So just to touch on that one, lads, and maybe we'll finish on this point. Given the fact that he's expecting to be playing consistent football in the Championship and was obviously introduced for Brighton in the week ahead of Evan Ferguson. Obviously Evan Ferguson does have his injury woes at the moment. Do you think we could get to a stage where Mark O'Mahony could be getting call-ups for the senior squad before the season's out?
I would imagine that Sinclair Armstrong probably is ahead of him in the pecking order, considering he already has a cap. But if you look at our striking options, Ida isn't a guaranteed starter at Celtic, and we obviously will get game time considering the amount of games they're going to be playing this season. Ferguson, as we said, the competition at Brighton and injury problems isn't a guaranteed starter. Parrott's probably the only real guaranteed starter of our striking options. So if any of kind of O'Mahony and Armstrong can put a run of games together where they're scoring consistently, you're going to get into the squad. That's kind of what you would think, considering the lack of kind of players scoring consistently, and even in last season with the various squads.
Yeah, I kind of think whoever in the Championship is in form will probably always make the squad. Even Callum Robinson has started the season okay and he's been picked this time, so whether that's O'Mahony, Armstrong, Tom Cannon, Imaku even with Millwall, if any of them score a few goals in the week leading up to the international camp, they probably have a chance. Even Will Keane got into loads of squads based off that logic. So I think that's still the case. It's not a bad thing to have. We actually have quite a few strikers there in the Championship, which is no bad thing. So if one of them is informed, then that confidence easily translates to the international stage. And yeah, we obviously need goals, so that's good. So I think it's a good situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to finish up on, and maybe a little bit of optimism just as we note how many strikers are involved at Championship level, and hopefully at least 2 of them can get involved. But yeah, like we say, it's been a good start for Mark O'Mahony, and Callum Robinson's had a good start as well. So yeah, thanks very much, lads. And just to finish up as well, every week we're going to play you out with a short clip of music from an Irish artist, and this week's artist is Fionn Regan and his new single Headphone. Fionn's new album All Avalanche is out on November 1st, so make sure to check it out. But until next time, we'll be joining you straight after the England game, probably with an episode on Sunday evening. So we'll hopefully be chatting to you after a good result, but maybe I'm being a little bit too optimistic with that one. But thank you very much for tuning into the first episode of the Ireland Radar podcast. I've been Joseph Murray. The lads have been Dylan Hudson, James French, and the mercurial Ronan Calvert, and we'll be back with you very soon.
Years ago, I was walking in the snow towards a light in the distance, and you were there, waiting for me. Years ago, was walking in the snow towards a light in the distance. And you were there, waiting for me. Years ago, I was walking in the snow towards a light in the distance. And you were there, walking with your headphones on. It's a game.